Coach Matthew Mitchell, welcome to the Mindset Advantage podcast and welcome to this special series called Coaching Beyond the Scoreboard. I'm so glad you're here today.
Oh, I'm thrilled to be here. It's an honor and love what you're doing with the series and excited for a great conversation today.
So, a lot has happened in the last couple of months. We're going to get to some of the great things that are ahead of you, but I think it's important to kind of rewind and see kind of how we got here. And in March of 2020, you had a little bit of an accident that took you off the sidelines.
Yeah.
Can we tell our listeners about what happened and what did you learn from that time of your life?
Yeah, it was I think, an amazing time for all of us in our lives and just an incredible event that impacted the world in so many ways. But for me personally, we all went home. They canceled the NCAA tournament. I was head coach at Kentucky at the time and never could have dreamed we could run a college basketball program virtually. And we had settled into that world and finishing the semester academically, and everything was remote. Everybody had gone home. I I was on a rocky path, going too fast, and tripped and fell and I had a really bad spill. Hit my head and my shoulder hurt, and my knee hurt. Really bad bang up, scraped up. One of those deals, but those things happen in life, and so I didn't think much of it. Had believed I'd fully recovered, and about 2 months later, when things were starting to open up a little bit, around the 1st of June in 2020, I had this persistent headache, and it turned out that when I'd fallen, I'd cracked my skull, and it had been a really tiny fracture in my skull, and so blood had leaked out, and then bones are so amazing that it healed, but the blood that had come out was now a clot there, and so it had to go in and be removed, and so that was a scary moment in time, and so I had to take a medical leave, and it was really the first time in my career that I'd slowed down at all. I had to get off of all devices. Really, they didn't want me on screens or taxing my recovery in that way. And so I would just walk a lot. Couldn't work out, couldn't jump, couldn't jostle the brain or anything. And so I ended up just walking like 8, 9, 10 miles a day. Just it was all that I could really do. And so that led to some reflection and also the recovery, just trying to figure out what was going on. So it's time to get back to it in the fall. And I finally got cleared, and I just been telling my wife at the time. I said, "This doesn't feel. I don't feel like I have it to go back." And she said, "You're going to be fine. You're going to be fine. And wait till you get back on the court." And so I finally returned to the court, and I just couldn't fire. I just didn't have the passion that I'd always had. And this is not uncommon when you have this kind of injury. Physically I was healed, but it had taken a lot out of me. And so I look back on that. So I decided to step away. We had a great team coming back, the program was very healthy. The foundation of the program was very healthy. And so I just felt like, I'm a person of faith. I just felt like it was God telling me to take another path. And I did it not knowing what was going to happen. I didn't do it knowing whether I'd ever coach again, and I didn't do it saying, "Well, I will coach again." I didn't know what was going on. I was just trying to make sure I was doing right by the Kentucky program, and I knew me leading that team that year, I could not have done it from a sincere place and an authentic place and an honest place. I probably could have faked my way through it, but that's not what I had ever taught anyone to do. So looking back on it, so that sent me on the quest of building a consulting company and business that has been very successful, and have learned a lot about leadership, and learned a lot that has helped me now prepare for this second act in college basketball coaching. And my wife was always saying, "Listen, I'm proud of what you're doing with the consulting business, and I'm proud of your success, but I don't want you to forget what you really, really do best, and that's coach college basketball." And so, with a lot of her encouragement, we found our way to Houston this year, and we're very excited about it.
I'm a big believer in coach that everything happens for a reason, whether it's faith in God, universe, call it what you want, but everything is supposed to happen the way it does. And sometimes it's hard to find those lessons. But what's the greatest lesson you learned from slowing down, from going through something traumatic, having brain surgery, stepping away from the court? What's the greatest lesson you learned from that season of your life?
Well, I think that even when you believe that you've reached a high level of leadership and that you've reached a high level of competency in the field and you've had success in it and you've driven results, the greatest thing that I found was continuing to grow, and that was engaging a coach. And my coach is a fantastic man out of Boulder, Colorado, by the name of Jim Warner. And Jim taught me, because I decided to continue to grow and to get with someone and talk to him about what I wanted to accomplish in life and where I was at this time in my life and what I wanted to do. I found out some things about myself that I don't believe if I had not paused that I would have really been able to understand that I had a perfectionist streak in my leadership that was not that drove some level of results, but I was hitting a ceiling with that way of thinking. That pursuit of being the best really started to have a negative impact on my leadership and caused me to lose some focus on where my focus needed to be. And so the biggest lesson that I learned, because I decided to continue to grow, was to trade that for excellence. And so instead of pursuing perfection and pursuing being the best, which I have very little control, and what ultimately did it perfectionism paralyzed me. I would look at all of when you start out trying to be perfect, it puts a lot of pressure on you to make sure that the first step has to be right. Like you can delay that because, hey, is this really what I should do? And so trading that for excellence, a pursuit of excellence instead of the best, my best. And it's been very powerful in my life and my leadership and the way that I'm approaching this new challenge. That's what's been so fun about this new challenge, is that everything that I created and built in my first career, in the first 15 years of being a Division I women's basketball coach, that's really what I was able to codify in the winning tools in our consulting company. And so now what I've been teaching all of these businesses, now I'm living it real time, and it is so powerful that I feel equipped, and I feel like I can wake up every day and really set my mind to having an excellent day and not having a perfect day. And I believe there's a lot of people out there that struggle with that. And so that's the biggest single lesson I think I would share with people.
I want to double click on it. So excellence over perfection. I think there's a lot of people and coaches that nod their head going, yeah, I relate to that. Coach, what is it? Can we dive in a little bit deeper? What does it look like to live a life of excellence as a coach? What does it look like to live a life as perfection? If somebody's out there listening, like, maybe I'm this, maybe, I don't really know which one I am. What does it look like to be on either side? How are they different from a tangible standpoint?
Yeah, I'll just share how I found that out was, when I took over the program at the University of Kentucky, there was really no track record of sustained success. There had been some pockets of success, but nothing that was sustained. And in year 3, we were really able to break through and get into the upper echelon of college basketball. And after year 3, that continued on for a decade. There was a time in years like 4, 5, 6 where we were really at the top of the game, but we were running in the way that just a very imperfect way to decide who's the best basketball team is the NCAA tournament. I mean, if people are familiar with basketball, you've seen so many upsets in the men's tournament, and you can see that happen in the women's tournament. It's starting to happen more and more. But we had one of the best teams in the country, and 2 years in a row we ran into the University of Connecticut, and who had the best team in the country and the best team of that decade. They were in the midst of I think it was 118 games, 108 games or 118 games they won in a row,
Wow.
and we were 2 years in a row in the Elite Eight. And so everybody is a basketball coach, college basketball coach. You would love to get to the Final Four. That's the pantheon of the industry, and the Final Four means a lot. And so 2 years in a row, we lost in the Elite Eight to Connecticut. And so perfection tells you, well, we're not the best. Connecticut's the best. And perfection you start comparing yourself to who you perceive as the best. And so instead of thinking about, wow, look what's happened between the time you got the job, the day you got the job in April of 2007, to now it's 6 years later, and look at everything that you've accomplished, instead of living in that world and being able to say, hey, we're really on to something here. We are really making some tremendous progress. You're saying we're falling short. We're not the best. We're not number one. We're not going to the Final Four. You're looking at all of these markers out there that the world considers, and that your competition maybe considers, or pundits consider as being successful. And we were having amazing success, and I couldn't see that because I was blinded by this perfectionist streak, and I did not have it defined at that point in time. Now looking back, I know that's what it was. And so what excellence would have done is excellence would have said, let's approach the evaluation of where we are in a very sober emotional state. All right, let's really deal with the facts. Where did we start? Where did we end? What happened? What's good? What do we keep? What needs to improve? But let's be really honest about where the program is, and the program's in a great spot. And so that led me to make some decisions that got us off track. And so that's what perfection will do, where excellence, I have tremendous control over two things in my life, and that's my attitude and that's my effort. And outside of that, it starts to get real dicey on what I can control. And I certainly can't control people. I certainly can't control circumstances. I certainly can't control the bounce of a ball in a basketball game. You know, those things, when you start trying to improve other people instead of improving yourself, you can run into a lot of headwinds there. And so where I mentioned earlier, perfection paralyzes me, excellence exhilarates me. Perfection sees all the obstacles of being perfect, and excellence shows me all the opportunities that are available to me. So it's a mindset shift that I'm grateful I was able to make. And wow, I would love for your viewers, listeners, anyone engaging this, to learn it a lot sooner. I hope it doesn't take them 50 years to, 52 years to learn it. But that's been my experience. And I think it's a powerful shift to make in your leadership.
When I'm working with coaches, one of the first things I ask is, what does success look like to you? And some coaches have this down. Some coaches have never thought about this before. If you're listening, coach, and you never thought about this idea, I think this is where you need to start. What does success look like to you? Because if you don't know what it is, society is going to come up with it for you.
Yeah.
Your salary, your win-loss record, et cetera, everything that's out of your control. I'd be curious, coach, what did success look like for you maybe in your early days as a coach? And perhaps how do you define success as a coach now? How has that changed?
Well, in the early days, success is survival and keeping a job, and
Yeah.
in what's such a competitive environment. And you have to realize, when I entered the SEC, I entered it with high hopes and extremely high aspirations, but I entered it into an era of Hall of Fame coaches that, Coach Pat Summitt at Tennessee, who gave me my big break and got me into college basketball, and who I'm forever grateful, and God rest her soul. She left us too early. But but just, one of the greatest of all time. I was competing against her. Andy Landers in the Hall of Fame. Um, LSU was great. There were all these great teams. And so just being able to get a program up and going and that had no track record and survived, that was success. And I enjoyed that part of it. Then it started to shift for me when we started to get, then I became dissatisfied with the results, and they were massive successes and major results. But the world's going to tell you, you have to be a champion, and championships matter and all this stuff. And then the 24-hour, sports cycle is entered now, and people are talking about things that really have nothing to do with winning, but they start to think that it has something to do with winning. And so I definitely fell prey to some of those things, but I think the common thread that's helped me have success in my leadership career is that impacting people in a positive way, helping someone improve, helping someone grow. That's always been important to me. And even when I lost my way for a bit, and most people would look at my career and say, I don't see where he lost his way, but I just know where I had some missteps. The thing that kept me solid and grounded is just I light up when I see someone benefit from learning the lessons that I've learned and now share. And I think that's what helps a high level leader get to that point when you are about people and people advancing and others advancing, and that lights a fire in you're going to be able to move people forward. And so success now looks for me is the winning, the record, the trophies, the championships. Those are going to be byproducts of what we do every day. Those are going to be byproducts of caring about people and serving our players and serving our coaches and staff and helping them improve and helping them advance. And there's no trophy in the world you could give me. There's no medal you could hang around my neck that will ever replace that part. And that's where that was happening for me in the corporate world. And I enjoyed helping people move forward. But now there's just been nothing like getting back here and seeing, just even in a short time, people moving forward because of what we are working hard to do for them every day and help them advance. And so that's success. That'll always be success. And I just I can't imagine existing on this planet and that not making me very, very excited.
What does it look like to have your team fly that flag? So it's about advancing others, about we over me mentality, I'm assuming. How do you it's one thing for the coaching staff to believe that. How do you get the kids to buy into that? Because it is so hard to be detached from the outcome. It's really hard to consume yourself with the stats, the numbers, the likes, the follows. The skill is, how do I detach from it? And so for you, you said that you detach from it, not to put words in your mouth, but you detach from it by putting that same emphasis and focus on other people, thus the we over me. How does that look? What does that look like day to day? What are the strategies? How do you take that into the athletes you're working with?
Yeah, I think it's more important now for leaders than ever to go and meet the people that they're serving where they are, and instead of waiting for them to come to you and waiting for the light to come on. People will say that, I can remember when the light finally came on for me when I was a young person, and I can remember some of those moments. I think we have to go to them, and we have to first establish that we care about them, and then here's the greatest lesson I learned from the great Pat Summitt. If someone's unfamiliar with her, please look her up. She was the first basketball coach in women's or men's basketball to reach 1,000 victories, 8 national championships. Really elevated women's sports in the United States and I would say worldwide. She was a major force. But so I got to spend 5 years with her, 4 summers working her summer camps. And then she noticed something in me and eventually let me join her staff, invited me to join her staff as a graduate assistant. So I had a 1 year, 1 season of I was with her every day. And so the question's always, what did you learn from someone like that? What is it like to be around someone great like that? What's the magic that you gain from that? And I can be honest, going in, I said, I'm going to really be able to unlock some secret here, spending every day with her. And the secret was this, was the consistency that she showed up with every day with the focus on what do we need to do to play Lady Vol basketball today. And so she was so clear on that, and she showed up, and it was the most incredible thing I've ever seen as far as her consistency and her focus in a time when she was one of the most popular sports figures in the country and worldwide famous and had so many things that could have distracted her. She showed up with that. And so now what I want to do is I go out and try to meet the people that I'm leading where they are, let them know that I care, let them know what we want to live and what we want to be about every day. And for us, it's called the winning tools. It's 3 guiding principles, 3 anchoring principles that help us approach success every day and approach productivity and achievement. And they're very simple. It's honesty, it's hard work, it's discipline. And so now what I'm able to do after this 4 year break and building our company and really getting all this content dialed in, now I'm able to go to them every day with sincerity in my heart, with care for them, and teach them what does that mean for Houston women's basketball? What does honesty mean? And I need to teach that daily. What does hard work look like? What does that mean? If you gave 1,000 people a survey and said, "Hey, should you work hard or not? Do you think working hard is better than not working hard?" You're going to get, 90 percentile is going to say, of course, hard work. But what does it really look like? What does it mean? And how does it benefit me as a core and anchoring principle? What does discipline? What does that mean? So you go there and daily, I am investing in them and their leadership with something that revolves around who we want to be, how we want to live. And so it's that consistency every day. And so I'll put it to you this way. I used to have these long 3 day opening of the year meetings, and I would tell everybody exactly what they needed to do and what honesty, hard work, discipline, and we're going to be that, and tell everyone you be on time and do this and do that, and here's the calendar, and this is what it's going to look like. And then I would go about the business of trying to figure out what plays we're going to run and, think about basketball and everything. And then 8 weeks later, the wheels are coming off. And I'm like, well, I told everybody what to do. What's the problem here? It's that, so it's not that's not leadership. It's in this day and age, more than ever, we have to show up. And if you've told them 1,000 times and they still don't have it, tell them 1,001, 1,002. Just stay at it, consistency every day. But here's the thing. I'm getting long-winded on this, but I don't want to forget this point. There's 3 things we need to be able to achieve, and it's talent, and it's skill, and it's energy. And so those 3 things, as a leader, you have to be able to identify the talent. They have to be talented enough to help you, but then you can impact that. You can help them develop more skill, and you can create an environment that honors high energy and positive energy. But those are the things that I think are important now. Consistently showing up. So you got your principles, and then that can help you develop a philosophy, and then you can develop that plan. And I think that's really what the key to leadership is today.
Oh, man, that's phenomenal, Coach. Masterclass there. If a head coach wants to be elite in any sport or any level for that matter, what can't bother them?
I think near term and present results, like what's happening in the present right now to be elite. You have to be able to absorb difficulties. You have to be able to absorb setbacks, and you have to be able to focus on what is the ultimate goal. What does success look like? What does elite mean? And you have to be rooted in your principles. And so I know who I am as a leader: honesty, hard work, discipline. You can you can choose those. Those are, I didn't invent those. Those taught to me by my parents, and I've seen them demonstrated. But if those aren't the ones, you pick anything that you want to know. But you have to be elite. You have to know who you are, because there's always going to be a shiny object that shows up in a new offense or a new defensive scheme or a new team that pops up and is playing lights out. And the danger there is to say, oh, well, I want to be them, or I want to get a little bit of that, or I want to do this. You have to know who you are to start with, so then you can develop, so your principles have to be there. Then you can develop a philosophy of how you're going to approach life and how you're going to approach success and how you're going to approach difficulty and challenge. And I think the elite coach also embraces preparation at the very highest level that they can possibly engage in. And that's my latest book is Ready to Win: How Great Leaders Succeed Through Preparation. And that the people who I admire the most are level 5 preparation people, and that I think gets you in a position to be elite. In the book, we talk about preparation is going to powerfully position you to win. And you can put this under, the heading of life's not fair, but if you don't prepare, you will never be elite. And if you will learn how to prepare, that at least gives you a chance. At least gives you a chance to be elite. And I think that in my life, I will be elite if I lead with my principles and I show up consistently, and I don't pay attention to these near-term setbacks that we're all going to experience, and I don't allow that to get me off track, distract me. Distractions are just so available to all of us. There's so many things that can distract us from being elite. And the people who get there, and I would challenge all of our listeners to just go and examine who the elite people are in your industry. And there may be one or two where it happened real fast and real quick, but you're just going to go and look and see at the giants of your industry are going to be people who are willing to do the work, but they stayed at it. And a great example in my industry that I admire so much is a Hall of Fame coach, women's basketball coach, Gary Blair. He was such a successful coach. He was at Stephen F. Austin, and then at Arkansas, and then at Texas A&M. And he coached for I don't know how many years. He coached 100 years, it seemed like. But he won a national championship in maybe it was his 33rd season or something. But he just stayed at it. He just kept showing up every year. And he had successful teams, but they weren't the greatest teams in the country, but they were always good and always successful. But he just stayed at it and stayed at it. And then one day, you know what? He cut down the nets. 2011 national champions, and he was well into his career. So was he elite because he finally won the national championship? No, he was elite because he just stayed at it. And he would have been elite had they not won the champ, if they lost that game. So that kind of resilience we teach in our program is not just about bouncing back from difficulty, but it's about holding form when you're successful. And that's elite people do that. Elite people keep that fire going, and they stay focused and they stay consistent, and they're rooted in their principles, and that's what's going to get you there.
Very cool. I have a couple of coaching specific questions here. And during your tenure at Kentucky, you had the opportunity to work with some incredibly talented basketball players, including a number one overall pick in the WNBA draft. Pretty cool. I'm curious from a head coaching position because this is some things that I hear when I'm consulting. When you have a player who's not only just a standout on the team, but one of the best on the entire planet, how important is it that he or she is bought into the program? How important is it that the best player physically gifted is also bought into everything else you're doing? And maybe this didn't happen to you, but what are some of the challenges that can come with your best physical player not buying into the program? And then in addition, a lot of questions here. What advice would you give to coaches who have a standout player? They're the best in the school. How can you work with that to make sure that everybody, he or she is a leader just based off of their talent? How do you use that to your advantage?
Well, that is a real challenge, and that's a such a great question and such a useful discussion for us to have because I have been so fortunate to coach some very talented players, and there's a reason there's a couple of pathways to being good, and so I can be a and there's a couple pathways to being really good, and so I can be wildly talented, superior talent, and my 80% is better than 80% of 100%. Yeah, I can beat most people with 80% when they're given 100. And that's incredible talent. So they're good players. Then there's players that have enough talent that just absolutely will not be outworked, and they build themselves, they devote themselves to the process, and they become good. They're not as talented as 80% of the people, but they outwork them. And so um, the pathway to greatness is when you have incredible talent and then you match it with incredible attention to detail and work ethic and dedication. And so I had the great pleasure early in my career of finding this out and understanding how this worked because at Tennessee, when I was with Pat Summitt that year, we had a player on the team named Tamika Catchings. And she's now 25 years later, her career's done. She's a first ballot Hall of Famer. She's a multi gold medal winner for Team USA. She's a multi-time winner, the MVP in the WNBA, one of the greatest players to ever play. There's no argument at that. And Tamika was great, and I learned what greatness was because she was the most talented, most gifted player on what was arguably the best team. We played UConn 3 times that year. They beat us once in the regular season. We beat them once in the regular season, and then they won the national championship game. We were the 2 best teams. So she was the most gifted player on our team at Tennessee, and she worked harder than everybody else. So when you have that as a coach, you need to recognize that you are very fortunate, you are very blessed when your best player is your hardest worker. So that is, but I will tell you that is very rare,
Mm-hmm.
very rare. So what do we do when we have a great player? So the first thing that I've learned is that they have to know that you will not use their talent for anything where you will gain. You won't use their talent for your gain as a coach. So I'm not going to allow them because they're so talented and we win games, and that makes me look good because we win games. I'm not going to allow them to just use their talent to do that. So that's the first thing I'm going to explain to them. I understand. So I use my winning tools, honesty. Ryan Howard was the number one pick. I understand how talented you are. You are. We don't play around. I don't say, well, I've coached better than you. I've seen better than you. To try to artificially get in her head and well, I better tighten up because I'm trying to compare myself. It's some of that some of that limiting beliefs that start popping in. You start thinking you have to play games with these players. I would just say, Ryan Howard, listen, I understand how great you are, but let me explain to you who the competition is. The competition is not Florida or Tennessee or Alabama or whoever's the best player on that team. Those are not pick your team, UConn, anybody. That's not the competition. The competition is your best. That's the competition. And so what my job is to evaluate you not on how everybody else is evaluating you and your SEC player of the year because your stat line is better than everybody else. My job is to see the greatness in you, and my job is to help you stay on track and not let you forget that. And so we are going to construct things that allow us to bring that to the forefront and bring that to the surface at all times. And so that may be an attention to detail that you don't think is necessary in the moment, but I'm going to tell you this. If you want to be your best, this is what we have to do. And so Ryan was just one of the most amazing players that I've gifted players that I've ever seen. So when we would get into some of the details, it's just so natural for us when we're supremely gifted in something, and now someone's telling us to pay attention to the details. You're like, what I'm doing is working. Why do I need to? Why do I need this? And so what I found with a great player, what you need to figure out is what makes them tick. And so with Ryan, and then once you find out what makes them tick, now you can start constructing your instruction that matches up. That don't make them do it your way. Don't be stubborn as a coach and go, well, this is the way we do it, and if you don't like it, that's not the way we do it. This is where we have to work hard to uncover how they tick, and then be disciplined to help them get to that spot. So what I mean by that is that Ryan was so competitive. That is her. It doesn't matter. She doesn't want to lose. That's why you would see her in games. She would rise up and just do what it took to win in games. She had that talent. So in order to get her to pay attention to details, I had to make sure that competition was at the forefront of, if I wanted her to pay attention to details. So listen, you're going to shoot against Susie. We didn't ever have any player named Susie, but let's just say Susie. We're going to have it. You're going to shoot against Susie. So Ryan knows she's better than Susie. Ryan knows she can outshoot Susie. No two ways about it. But I want you to pay attention to your footwork. And so if you don't do your footwork correct, the shot doesn't count. So if she wanted to be sloppy with her footwork, but then just destroy Susie and make, first one to 15, and she's got 15 and Susie's still on 8, no, that doesn't count. So now she knows she doesn't want to get beat by Susie. So now if footwork matters, then I'm going to do this because I want to win. And so those are just some of the things that I've encountered when you're coaching supremely talented players. They have to know that their talent, you're not going to let them fall short of who they can be just so you as the coach and the team benefit from winning a game. It just can't. You'll never. They may push back, but it's at some point they'll know you're not pushing them. They'll just know, and even if they act like they don't want to be pushed, great players, they love to be coached. They want you to pay attention. They may test you sometimes, but that's where you have to just get really honest on the front end that you recognize their talent, and you're not going to let them settle for being better than everybody else. You're going to push them toward being the best they can be.
And sometimes that can be tricky. Everybody wants to have a Ryan Howard. Everybody wants to have a Tamika Catch. Everybody wants to have the Giannis Antetokounmpo on the team. And that is great from a physical standpoint. But from a coach's standpoint, there are challenges that come with having a standout player. There are some things that can trickle down of like, hey, coach is pushing her because she's the best in the country. I'm not getting the same push. Or she has a high standard. Why don't I get the high standard? So there can be some you treat them different than them. How do you deal with that, coach, of making sure everybody has a high standard, everybody's getting the attention, everybody's getting all this, even though they're the most talented in the country? It's hard to do.
Oh gosh, now you have to give everybody. So everybody has to have the same standard of being their best. And so that, please don't misunderstand me on that, that Ryan wasn't getting special attention there. It was just more of a technique on how to really bring out the best in her. The one thing that I noticed about this, one of the situations I'll share is that sometimes when your best player, even although you are holding them to a high standard in practice, but they still don't have to get in the gym as much as Susie has to get in the gym. And Susie's really frustrated, like, well, Ryan's not in the gym as much as I'm in the gym. And so
Right.
that's when you have to be honest and say, Susie, stop comparing yourself to Ryan. This is not a comparison. Again, instead of being the best, let's focus on your best. And you have to be in the gym. If you want to if you want to contribute to this team the way I know you want to contribute to this team, you you can't worry about what anyone else is doing. You have to do what you have to do. Listen, I'm not great at math, and so I can't just figure out things in my head and add and hey, what's the percentage of this? That I have to sit down and get all my numbers and my facts because I don't have a mathematical genius mind. I can't compare myself to someone who does. And you're around those people and you're like, gosh, how do they figure that out in their head? I can't compare myself. I don't have that talent. And so everybody's got to own what they have and do what they have to do. And so it just goes back to that. If I could give everybody a young coach or any coach that's struggling, just really go to work on honesty, honesty with yourself, which is very difficult to do because what so the winning tools: honesty, hard work, discipline; losing tools: excuses, complaints, laziness. All right. So the excuses can make me very dishonest with myself. Well, I'm not good enough to do this, or I'm not smart enough to figure that out, or I don't have enough resources to do this, or that person's better than I am. Excuses. Eliminate those and get real honest with yourself, and then get real honest with your players. Get real honest with your players. And if your players are concerned or don't want to accept what the reality is, then have the courage to continue to try to teach them that. But if they don't want to accept that, then they can go somewhere where someone will allow them not to face reality. I mean, that's the way that I've always looked at it, is that if we're not serving you, if this isn't the right environment for you, let us try to help you find someplace, or we give you our blessing to go. But it's going to be honest here. And that just clears up so much in my coaching and in my success, is that when I'll embrace that and then I'll share that with players, a lot of these struggles that people have in managing their team are greatly reduced. You're never gonna have a team that doesn't go through struggles, and you're gonna go through struggles weekly, but you can really face them so much more powerfully and effectively when honesty is at the core of your program.
Doc Rivers once said, average players want to be left alone. Good players want to be coached. Great players demand the truth. And I think there's some parallels here on getting
Yeah,
the truth.
yeah.
However, I do think there's probably a right way and a wrong way to deliver the truth and to deliver honesty. If we're talking
Mm,
like a masterclass level of coaching,
mm,
that's a higher level. What
mm.
have you learned about the right way and the wrong way to deliver truth?
So honesty, the way that we teach honesty is three things that we teach. And two of them, gratitude, we really try to help the player focus on everything they have to be grateful for. Because when you start that, it forces you to get honest that when I'm sort of seeing life, the glass is half empty, and I am bemoaning the struggle that I'm involved with. If I'll be honest and really think about everything that I have to be grateful for, that leads me toward some solutions. And so I just think that's a great place to frame our activity, is through that lens of gratitude. Then we teach humility, which is an accurate view of yourself. Not I'm humble and I'm not as good and I'm going to let you go before me, and that's not it. It's accurate view. So where do you step into the spotlight because your unique gifts help the team? And if it's setting screens, you need to say, I'm one of the best screen setters, and it gets Ryan Howard open. And that's very, very important. Whether anybody realizes it or recognizes it, your team's going to, your coach is going to recognize it. The Houston Cougars, we're going to recognize it. We're going to recognize what your gift is, and you got to step to the spotlight and you have to deliver. Also, you need to be humble and accurately view where you need everybody else. So those are the first two challenges that we really give to the team to live an honest and play an honest role on the team. Now, then here's the third one that is very key to what you and I are discussing right now is dependability. Mm. People will only trust you as much as they can depend on you. And so being a dependable person is going to lead toward that honest atmosphere that we need. And that's going to allow you to really build trust. And so when we're talking about delivering the truth, what I have to do from day one is I have to be dependable. And so look, on day one, no one's going to make any mistake in the first team meeting that's going to affect the team in a really significant way. I mean, somebody may show up late, which is a great place to teach. Somebody may not be paying attention, another great place to teach. And so there's opportunities to say, listen, this is how we're going to operate, but I have to be dependable with my emotions. I have to be dependable with my energy. I have to be dependable with my message as the coach. And so we in order to deliver the truth in a caring, sincere, loving way, we have to build up that trust by being dependable every day. And so I learned I used to be so intense. I'm still intense. But I would try to dominate with anger and with volume in my voice and with if you all better do this or we're going to run threatening extra conditioning, whatever it may be. And so you can't depend on someone who's not emotionally steady and stable. And so fear just has a shelf life. It just has a shelf life because you can make people afraid enough where they just don't care. Like, I know this is terrible and I know it's not going to end well, but I just don't have the energy anymore to deal with this. I'm just so afraid and the fear. And so that dependability where you show up and you tell the truth over and over and over in a constructive way. So the truth needs to be, you're not playing well because you are rushing your shot. You're rushing your shot because your feet are not stable and your footwork is not solid. And we need to get more reps with your footwork. And you need to stop worrying about your threes not going in. And we are going to go in here and work on some form shooting. And we're going to reset our fundamentals. And we're going to not skip any steps here. And I'm telling you, you're not shooting up to your capability right now. But that doesn't mean that we can't address that. And so I need you to shoot better. So this is what we're going to do. If you disagree with that, I can listen to what you're saying. But the bottom line is, I've been doing this for so long. This is the solution. Let's get here close to the goal. Let's start going through it. That's the truth. So I didn't say your shooting is awful, and if you don't get it straightened out, the team is going to suffer, and your butt's going to the bench, and you'll never see the light of day again. Now so we've told the player they're not shooting, and that's you can look at the numbers. If you're not shooting great, but I've delivered it in one way that has a solution to it, and has hope and has a pathway to get back to shooting the way, and the other one's built in shame and fear and emotional instability, and so. I don't know how much, capacity coaches have for that. I know that for me, learning that is totally changed the way from a young, intense coach that was all about winning. We're going to win. We're going to win. now this communicate, we're going to win because I communicate so much more effectively, and I become such, build more trust because my communication is dependable.
The strategy that you're explaining there is something I'm seeing all the time from some of the best leaders that I'm around, especially coaches. And it's this kind of this framework of honesty plus optimism. I'm a firm believer. I'm a mental performance coach at heart, and I believe that the best leaders are always optimistic with a little bit of a quote around always. Always looking at the glass is half full. There's a little bit of optimism that's hidden deep in their mind. And so the key unlock, coach, what I like from what you said was it's honesty, but the follow-up is some optimism. What I mean by optimism is I'm coming with a solution and
Yeah.
I'm coming with something that you can go do. I think the origin of the question was how does honesty go wrong? Honesty can go wrong by saying you're not playing well, you're on the bench, or hey, you just had a turnover, now you're sitting. There's no follow up, there's no optimism, there's no strategy. I'm a big
Yeah.
believer for coaches to either tell their kids or the parents, if you ever have a problem with the program, problem with how things are going, I'll listen, but I also want you to come with a solution because then
Yeah.
we can start to move forward. So I think that's kind of the framework you follow as well: honesty plus optimism.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the ways that I learned that we have to address things where people are having difficulties. I said the losing tools were excuses, complaints, laziness. So complaints, I learned this the hard way, that complaints are rooted in negativity and do not have solutions. But when I would tell a player, I don't want to hear any complaints, that put up a barrier to, there's a difference between a complaint and a concern.
Mm,
And so if I'm concerned about my shooting, I need to come with the idea that there is a solution because it's important. Nike came out about 20 years ago, 18 years ago with a line of women's basketball shoes. So no longer were you going to wear an Air Jordan or a Kobe or something, that we were going to do a women's shoe. In Kentucky, we were one of the schools chosen to pilot the program. It was a huge honor. Only 5 schools got to do it. So we got these great new shoes. So I'd said no complaints, no excuses, no laziness. So I started noticing in practice, people are falling out and taking off shoes and rubbing their feet, and they're retaping and everything. And so about the third day, I've never been the sharpest guy in the world, but about the third day, I go up to the trainer and I'm like, Courtney, what in the world's going on here? What is the problem? Why does everybody keep dropping out and retying their shoes and everything? She said, well, the shoes are no good. They're too narrow and their feet hurt. I said, well, why hasn't someone told me?
I don't want to
Coach, they
complain.
didn't want to complain. They don't want to complain. And I was like, wow, that we got to fix that. And so then we go in, and that got us to solutions. That's so good. What you're saying is that, hey, there's a difference between a complaint. Why do we have to get up at 6 a.m. in the summer, 4 days a week, and run these bleachers or do this weight training or whatever? I don't understand why we can't do it at 10 o'clock. And, Betsy over at Ohio State, they get to go whenever they want to go. And then it just starts going around the locker room, and it's just a bunch of complaining. And the way I say it is, it's like a funnel cloud that just starts going, and it strengthens and it strengthens. Finally, it's a tornado, and when that negative energy hits, it's destruction. It's a complaint, but a concern. Complaint rooted in negativity. A concern, if you look at the definition of concern in the dictionary, the word that jumps out to you is important. It's something that's important to someone. And so that's when I had to start teaching that hey, if my equipment's not right, the timing on this play is, I can't get the feel for the timing. I don't understand what you're saying. You're telling the team to do this and nobody understands it. And the captain comes and says, our timing's off. You're not explaining this correctly. That's a concern. We need you to explain it better to us, coach. We need to know we're not doing it right, and you're not telling us how to do it right. That's a concern. There's a solution. I can change my approach. I can break the play down differently, or I can check the time. So that's so key to communication and coming with a solution, I agree with you, is so important.
Yeah, one more question for you. I'd love to get your opinion on. How do you teach accountability within your program, whether it's coach to player, but probably more importantly, player to player accountability? It's something a lot of coaches out there are hungry to hear the answer on. And I think the best coaches like yourself, they have some good strategies here. How do you teach accountability within your program?
Well, we have three. So the winning tools: honesty, hard work, discipline. The winning attributes are coachability, accountability, resilience. And we'll probably write a book on that one, on three attributes sometime.
Awesome.
But the accountability has to be, we have to first of all create that dependability of honesty where we can build some trust. And so if I am dependable and I show up and I am doing what I need to do and I hold myself accountable to the program, now I am able to build some trust, and now we can start to help each other. And I'm so tired of Coach Mitchell, riding me, and I think it's unfair. Well, then when her teammate has gone through the process and has built that dependability, and she's dependable, she can say, "Hey, listen, I see it another way, and I think maybe you could look at it that way." And I think accountability's got to be involved in this emotional safety you have to create as a leader in the team, that it's okay for someone to confront you,
That's right.
but it has to be in love, it has to be in concern, it has to be in respect. And so that's incumbent upon us as leaders to model that behavior, and so when you mess up as a leader, you have to, and let's say the athletic director's not around, or whoever you're accountable to, and you're at the very top of the chain, you have to say, I'm holding myself accountable. I messed that one up. That's my fault there. This is my solution to rectify what's going on. And so I have to model that day after day after day. And it is so important that we model that first. But you can't just say, "Hey, listen, we're going to hold everybody accountable. You hold her accountable. She holds you accountable. I'm holding you accountable, and you hold me accountable." It can't be talked about. It has to be demonstrated, and it has to be lived each and every day. And so I think that's one of those things where a coach has to give some time on that, and has to say it's important, because we say it's important, but then you start to teach it when you start to see it, or you start to see the lack of it. And you really, this one takes some time.
Coach, this is my last question. This is the Coaching Beyond the Scoreboard series. Personally, what does it mean for you to coach beyond the scoreboard at Houston?
Make an impact on these players that helps them in the near term, clearly helps them become a better basketball player, helps them reach their goals academically. Hey, I want to get a finance degree. Let's give you all the support to do that. It helps them in the present, and it's helping them improve, as a college student, college player, but simultaneously how we're doing it, what we're teaching them. And I'm very intentional about this, and I tell them all the time, honesty, hard work, discipline, those will travel with you for the rest of your life. If you will get these things ingrained into your soul and you live these three things, you're going to have a chance. You're going to have a chance to navigate whatever challenge comes this way. You're going to have a chance to navigate whatever success you experience. And so it must be deeper than 30-6 at the end of the year and you're Big 12 champs. You went to the Final Four. Those things are not worth anything 10 years from that date, except they may give you a cheer at the 10-year reunion or something, but you can't buy much with that. I mean, those accomplishments fade so quickly. What beyond the scoreboard means to me is the experience they're having makes an impact on them as they move into life, and they're no longer valuable as a basketball player. They are valuable as a person, and that's what coaching beyond the scoreboard means to me. And it's the most important thing that I could possibly get across to a player.
Man, giving me goosebumps. Coach, I'm so glad that you're back on the sidelines. You got another fan here. I can't wait to watch you this winter. Last thing, how can my listeners best support you and the Houston program?
Thank you so much. You can keep up with everything we're doing on the basketball side at uhcougars.com. That's our website. We're on all of the social media platforms, and then if you need any of this encouragement from, if you're a coach and you're looking for anything that we've created, we have some great free resources for leaders on coachmatthewmitchell.com. And and then we notify people. We'll be doing some coaching Zoom, some free stuff
Oh,
for
sweet.
coaches to come in
Awesome.
and hop in, so you can keep up with us. Coach Matthew Mitchell at Coach Matthew Mitchell on all the socials, coachmatthewmitchell.com. And then we have some great leadership resources on the Coach Matthew Mitchell Show, my podcast. I would love for people to go over if they. Um, we talk about the winning tools on the Coach Matthew Mitchell Show. So that's how people can keep up with us, and we're very excited for the future here. We feel like we've got a very bright future at Houston. It's an amazing city, amazing university. We're in proximity to some of the best basketball talent in the country right here in this city, and certainly in the state of Texas. So we're pumped up. Appreciate this opportunity. What a great discussion we've had today. It really, really was awesome.
This was great, Coach. Thanks again for your time. Thanks for your wisdom, and go Cougars.
Thanks so much.